I guess my hit on all of it, can I say a curse word? Is like fuck it all. I'm 58 years old, and when I first got into like self-help type of things, I was 16, and I was looking to really change myself. I really didn't like myself a lot. Back in those days, which I know, Anne, you remember, there was all kinds of weirdo things out there, which there still are, like rebirthing and things where you weren't enough. So first there was the big, children should be seen and not heard. And then, of course, there was the big, we need to have self esteem and we need to better ourselves and self help here and there. And I probably read and exposed myself to 90% of what was even out there in America at the time, maybe some things that were in Europe. Um, and I was always looking to better myself because I really didn't feel good about who I was. And I did that for like 40 some years, spent lots of money. A lot of people like myself and you, I know, have been through the mill on those and watched different things. And what a beautiful effort to try to make your life better and feel better. And some of those things helped for a little while, like meditation. And I did some silent retreats for 10 days where you just don't talk for 10 days. But in essence, what that was really trying to get me to do was to just get myself to be quieter, because why is it that when you're more silent and you're quieter in your mind, that life seems to be not as scary and hassle, and you're just not thinking so much. So when you and I decided, like, what should we name this, I wanted to name it the simplicity of the principles, because really all we're doing with this thing called the three principles, whatever that means, is it's just a way of understanding how our cute little minds work and how we misunderstand how our minds work, and we try to better ourselves and do it differently. And in all that, we make ourselves quite overthinking, miserable people, like all the not enough. And every year there was a new theory or a new book that came out about something about self-esteem and how to raise better kids, be a better person. And and I came into the principles, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I just found out about it, like many other things I'd found out about. And when I started looking into it, I really saw something different in that there was nothing really wrong with me. Like all those 40 years of trying to fix myself, I was never anything wrong with me. It was kind of like if you're in a zoo and you're looking at a giraffe and you think that that giraffe should be a, a rhinoceros. Well, you're going to sit there and wash those damn spots off, try to make the neck shorter. Reminds me of me as a young girl, try to make the neck shorter so she fits into the rhinoceros group when she was supposed to be a giraffe, not a rhinoceros. And all this sounds so simple, but in the simplicity of that, I just started seeing life very, very different, like most of the people that have probably spoken on your show. And it's not a very difficult or a very special thing. It's very ordinary. And sometimes people tend to get away from the ordinariness of it because at first it's almost like you get this high, like, oh my God, uh, you're seeing life from this perspective where life looks so fantastic. And then you start making it into this very special thing, and how life, you should then always be happy. Like, it's like you first learn these principles, which are the simplest thing in the world, because really any 2-year-old knows the principles. We already were born knowing all this, right? So we're going back to the simplicity, not to the specialness, or not to the trying to be special, just the simplicity of the way life works. Meaning, when we overthink things, we get all caught up and we get all like our wires get all mixed up, and life starts to become more and more hard. And then it's funny because in all those self-help things I did, so you overthink the things to begin with and life becomes more hard, and then you overthink it some more to try to get out of that hardness of life, right? And then you're just busy overthinking all the time and trying to be better than what you are. And we're just these silly cute little human beings living here for a while, and doing the best we can while we're here. And we've all heard those words before, but I really see them now differently. Like I heard many words, but I really see now that it really is true. There's nothing was ever wrong with myself. Even as far as recently, because I brought this up, and this is really kind of important to me in the principles, and is that you get to a place where you start seeing some things, but that doesn't mean tomorrow I'm not going to act like an asshole. I mean, just because today everybody's looking at Wendy, oh, look, Wendy, she looks so enlightened and she's so great. Well, tomorrow Wendy could be an asshole yelling at her kids. The kids are like, what? Stop micromanaging me and doing whatever. For as long as we're here, we're just going to have our humanness. And we're going to have days where things don't look happy and days where they do. And all that fussing around and trying to change all that and trying, like I remember a period of time in my 20s, the whole trying to be happier than I was. Boy, was that a miserable time. Finally, I went and did some other way, way crazy culty thing that talked about being miserable. And I was much more happy just being miserable, being allowed to be miserable. But one of the things, especially with young people, like we're running around trying to achieve, and rightfully so, we all want to be successful, especially when we're young. But I noticed this the other day, because a lot of people that know me know that I've struggled with health issues, mainly cancer. And the other day, like I've had cancer for a pretty long time. Like I was diagnosed in 2010. But for a really long time, it didn't show up as painful in my human body. And I recently, a few months ago, it started showing up as painful in my body. And I remember somebody asking me to do a webinar that I did the other day. And he said, let's call it Beyond Suffering. And I'm like, oh, crap. All right, whatever you want to call it, fine. But today, I hope something comes to me later, because right now I'm not beyond suffering. I'm feeling a lot of suffering in the human body. And I remember having this thought that I should be better at feeling pain. Like I, Anne, should be able to rise above it. I know people, human beings do. There's people that have a higher or lower tolerance, but pain at the time, the thought of pain or future pain freaked me out sideways. I wasn't good with it. I have friends that work in hospitals. I've seen people like be really easy about the fact that they're in pain, but I never considered myself one of those. Well, then I remember having the thought that I should be one of those. And it wasn't just a thought, it was a whole theory about life that Wendi Sajasi should be fine with feeling pain. And that brought me to this whole idea that why? why should I be any better at that than, you have a human being, and I have one of my children that's a really good artist, and I have another child that's a really good baseball player. Why should one be a good artist and one be a good baseball? Why should anyone be any different? Why shouldn't I be bad at feeling pain? When I started seeing that I'm not good at pain and I don't need to be good at it, and who cares? Is there, like, did the Dalai Lama write a little graduate course for being good at pain? And then you graduate, and then everybody says, oh, Wendi Sajasi was good at dealing with pain, and she was this wondrous float off the mountain girl. But when I really saw it in that way, and this is so simple that we could miss over it. We're always trying to be something or better, or we're not good enough. A lot of the webinar that I talked about, there's a beautiful gentleman who's a friend of mine called Dick and Benninger. I think he did one of your talks. And in the community of the three principles, a lot of people see him as a very lovey-dovey, loving person, like he couldn't not feel love. And that's probably true. And knowing who he is, he just seems to see people through the eyes of love. And I've had a lot of clients thinking they're supposed to then be like that. I'm now, okay, I learned from the principles that when I have this beautiful insight, I feel love towards people and I don't feel judgmental, and I like the kind of person I am. But but so what? Why does that mean that then you have to be that kind of person? Because guess what? You're not getting out of this alive. You're not getting out of this human experience without having shit, without having triumphs, without having rejections, without having good and bad. And the span of a life, let's say it's 100 years, you're going to have 100 years, and throughout those years life is going to suck some days. So, oh, I lost you. Can you still see me?
I can still see you, yeah.
Oh,
You've and you're still there.
I could get you back. Let's see.
You probably just lost the screen behind another one, did you?
Probably. You know me. I'm not good at that. That's another thing I really am not good at. But luckily I gave up on that one because that would take too much work to be good at techie. So I really started seeing that the principles, it's not a means to an end or anything like that. It's not a way to get yourself better. It's just a way to see life that you're really fine the way you are. And that nobody, I remember one time, one of my teachers, her name is Linda Pransky. I think she might have done one on your thing, no?
No, she hasn't. No.
Anyway, I remember her saying to me one day, I was actually struggling thinking about cancer, and she's like, what makes you think that you get the guaranteed chip of get out of here alive and you're not going to suffer? I mean, babies have poop diaper. Every baby has poop diapers. Some of them smells worse than others. No matter what, nobody gets here and doesn't suffer, or doesn't, not necessarily suffer. They don't have things that don't go their way. That's part of life. And not just going your way, you're not just, who cares if you're not good at everything? You are meant to be a giraffe, not, how many years, 40 years I spent trying to bleach those spots off to be an elephant instead of the giraffe. I mean, we were all meant to be whatever and whoever we show up to be. We're little pieces of a puzzle, and we all somehow fit together. I don't know all the answers to all that. I don't know if I like the way you have the secret of life. Maybe we don't really learn the secret. Maybe we learn it when we die, and maybe we don't. But, while we're here, it's really just fuck it and have a good time. How much time did I wait? Especially in being sick lately. I got very sick where I had a lot of physical pain. And then I got to where I started using the right medications to not feel the physical pain. And once I got out of the physical pain, I had a few weeks where all I felt was gratitude for everyone around me and for having um, another chance at life. Like, it's not over till the fat lady sings, you know, that expression, like the fat lady didn't sing. And now I have a chance at, you know, having a physical body without being in pain all the time, because I get to use medicine and I get to use the modern science or whatever. Um, so I just, all the times that I wanted for so much more, and now all I could see is that I have all the community I had ever wanted. I wanted to be part of this community, and I thought I should have more friends and things should go a different way. And you finally, all I could see is friends around me. All I could see is people that love me and all that. People say that's because of me. A few of my friends have told me, and I said, oh, well, maybe, you know, maybe because I try to put myself in a way. I like people. I don't always like people. That's a big lie. But, um, it's fun when you're able to be a help to a person. It's fun. So all the fighting, all the fighting against what was, all the thinking and the years of, if my husband would just, if my kids were just this, if my community was just better, if I just had the nicer house, if I just had more self-esteem, why don't I have her looks? Why don't I have her self-esteem? I'd be more successful if I just had a better childhood. And I finally just don't even see the purpose of thinking any of that. And then when you somehow get the grace, it's not even like I did it for myself. I just got some sort of grace where I saw that. And you look for it. It's not like you just see it. If you keep looking, sometimes you start to see that life is really good the way that it is, even when it's not good, even when it kind of stinks, even when life stinks, right? And you are trying to get out of this bad place you're in, and you think about the principles and you try to use what you learned in the principles. But when you go in there trying to fix yourself, usually you mess it up more. It's kind of like a botched recipe and you keep adding stuff, and no matter what, you still taste the yucky thing you put in there. Well, it's very hard to get out of that place. You have to kind of just start anew. But even when you're stuck in that, you don't even have to be stuck in that. You could just be not trying to resist it and always try to feel better and always trying to use the, okay, let's now I have the principles, now let's apply it to this part and that part. Let's just live our lives. The principles are not like that. They're not like a thing that you apply. They're a thing that you see and you understand, and then you can't help but apply it. So it's just been a lot of time of trying to change myself, and it sure is relaxing to not have to do that. And it grows, it evolves once you see a little bit, like how my husband wasn't that bad after all. You start seeing more, and you just like all of a sudden you're like, wow, was he always that nice? Wow, did that always happen? Were my kids really always that great? Did I really have that many friends and I was still fighting against that? So I just kind of feel like I don't need for much, and I just am more and more enjoying my time while I'm here. And on my days that I have suffering, like physical suffering or emotional suffering, I just don't look into it too much. I try not to overthink it too much. I just give myself a break, get out of my way, let myself be in a bad mood or a good mood. Like the principles, when I first learned about the principles, I got the usual, a lot of people get really high at first, and I got that usual high. And then you get kind of attached to that. Oh, now I could be happy all the time. And then once my husband said to me, the principles is not about being happy. And I'm like, it's not. Well, then I don't want to do it. I didn't. I just was like for a few days or a few weeks, and I was like, oh well, I can't help myself from doing it. From like, what I mean by doing it is just learning more about how your mind works. And all the good things, all the good feelings and stuff are just a byproduct from understanding the thing. You've been living in this misunderstanding your whole life. The misunderstanding, for instance, that I should scrub my giraffe spots off. If I've been confined to that 40 years of thinking that my giraffe spots don't belong there, all I have to do is stop trying to bleach them off, and then there's so much freedom just in that. That's it. I didn't have to go get more self-esteem or give myself a better elephant gray color. I just stopped scrubbing. And then all of a sudden life was the way it was supposed to be. And I was back to being a 2-year-old that has tantrums and gets mad and gets happy and gets mad and gets happy and gets all these different types of emotions. So that's just how life has been for me. It's pretty easy and simple. It's so hard when you're not looking that way, though. It seems like you're looking everywhere, but it's pretty easy and simple. That's why we skip over it, I guess, because it's so simple. I mean, how simple is that? Stop trying to bleach those spots off.
Yeah, I love that one. That's just so, yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing, isn't it, really? I love it. Just, yeah, just leave the spots where they are and get on with being you. I mean, that's the real beauty of it. Is it might sound strange to people listening at first that you're saying, you mean I've got to stay feeling as bad as I feel? Well, no, you can just be as you are, and then it just it's when you keep telling yourself I shouldn't be feeling this and I shouldn't be feeling that and this shouldn't be like this, that actually we suffer, isn't it? So it's like you said, it's experimenting with it, really. It's just like, just see what happens when you just live and don't listen to any of that stuff about I don't have, like you said, stop scrubbing the spots, stop trying to be different.
I mean, and then that's why they say you don't have to do anything. Because once you stop scrubbing the spots, you're so relaxed, you have all this time. I mean, meanwhile, you're outside trying to find every kind of, and this sounds like I'm kidding around, but really, as a giraffe, being Wendi, I was trying to find every kind of bleach around that would possibly scrub. I mean, there was plastic surgery, there was, going to all these different seminars, Byron Katie. Then I'd get enlightened, or I'd go to Europe and do like a 10-day quiet retreat. Then I'd get enlightened and feel good, or I'd get the right career or the right boyfriend or the right this. And in essence, that was all the scrubbing of the spots. And when I just stopped doing that, there was nothing really to do. And I was back to being a normal 2-year-old that was, fell and cried when you fall, and you get up and you do something else. Like 2-year-olds aren't very attached to outcome. They just, they see something. I haven't really been around a 2-year-old. I've been around 5-year-olds lately, but from what I remember being around 2-year-old, they see something and they go and they get it. They don't have a lot of ideas about what that's going to mean for their future, and we start building on those, that meaning. And isn't it funny, that meaning about what that means in the future? So that the 2-year-old wants to get the beautiful red block, and he's just in that moment was run towards block, run towards block, fall down, I still see the block, go get the block, run towards block. But they haven't built up an idea that once we get the block, we'll be happy, and then we'll have success, and then we'll have. So at some point in our life, it's like we've made that more real. The fact that once we get the block, all these things are going to happen. And we've lived a life inside of a sort of a lie that once we get the block, all these things are going to happen. And so we're all messed up. We're all messed up thinking that that block means something. And we start putting meaning on the relationship and the perfect little family and the right car and the right amount of success, and all that becomes meaningful. And then we're ending up living in some dream world in the future or the past, and we're not even allowing ourselves to be the 2-year-old who just wants to get the block for the sheer joy of running after the block and the pretty color. So then we start building this up, and it starts meaning like, oh, but if we get the block, then we get the good wife, and we get the good family and the approval, and then we get the law practice, or as you were, a doctor in many fields. And, and that becomes more real than what's really real here right this second. Like, isn't that strange that we do that as human beings? And it's very hard to get out of that at first, because it seems we've made it so real, we've made it, the lie, so true. And then when you start talking to someone about why they're not successful, or what it means to them that they're not successful in their business, then they have so many meanings hooked onto it. And then it takes a while to come back around, to come back to the reality of what really is, what's really real. What's really real is just, I mean, it's so simple. And you've probably, a lot of people have spoken about this before, but all that's real is really me and you. We're talking right now. For me, in my experience of the world, that's all that's real, is my dog sitting here on my bed. I'm on my bed talking to you. Now, if I start thinking, like, I know my son's having an art show tomorrow, I can make that very real in my mind. Oh, how am I going to get there? Am I going to go? It's 2 hours away, blah, blah, blah. I could start living in the fantasy of that reality. And then I've lost all this, what's really real right now. And as I say that, what's really real, I mean, whoever even considers that we're living in some idea, period, an idea, because we never even know that thing that we thought, the red brick that was going to get us the success, was, we don't even know that it's going to get us the thing we want. Like, for instance, you thought whatever you thought about being a doctor, and it didn't turn out, you couldn't have studied that long, and it turned out to be all you fantasized about what that meant for your life. So, not that being a doctor isn't a beautiful career or something people should do. It actually is, because you're here to enjoy your life and do what you think you should be doing, and what floats your boat. But all I'm saying is, the only thing that really floats your boat in that moment is running after the red brick and saying, that's a pretty color, I want to do that, without a lot of meaning that means something about Ann Curtis or her life, or Wendi Sajasi. Like, I went into coaching of the 3 principles, and I spent considerable amount of time and money, and very happy I did that. But I remember having ideas that means I'm a coach, and what does that even mean? All that means is me sitting across from somebody else, reminding them of their little blind spots that I don't have because I'm not living in their body right now, but I'll have them tomorrow in my own little body. All it means is me being the same Wendy I've ever been and learning more about me and how life works and the simplicity of it. Doesn't mean, it doesn't mean anything. That's why, people could be, I guess that's why people could be so hyper successful and they could go kill themselves on drugs anyway, like Elvis Presley and all those big famous people. Because if they thought all the meaning was wrapped up in there and they get there and then they see there's no meaning in it, I would say that might be a depressing moment at first.
Yeah, very confusing as well. Because that's the way we've been taught to think, to take notice of these and to believe that those things will bring us happiness and will bring us relief or whatever it is that we're looking for. And it's never going to do that. So yeah. So I just had a thought about what about death then? Because a lot of people, and we've done a program together about fear around cancer, right? So what about the fear of death around cancer? Because you've talked about pain and the experience of pain in the moment. What about when people are frightened of dying?
I think that's above my pay grade. I think that it's any fear. You're just living in the thought, like I don't think about it too much, but if I'm thinking about what might happen to my body based on, like, let's say I'm having what Wendy said JC will do, I'll have physical pain, and now sometimes if my thinking goes a little wayward, I'll start thinking about what that might mean and how much pain I'll have in the future. I mean, it's just like anything else. The best example I have is something that Thomas and I discussed while I was in the hospital. Thomas is my 17-year-old who, there's videos around about him, and he's been in the principals a long time, and they have full on changed his life. He recently got a scholarship for baseball, and I don't know that he would have gotten the scholarship for baseball for college had he not understood about the principles and about baseball through the principles. Because I was telling Thomas the other day, baseball is a game of failure. So you basically, if you're a great baseball player, you fail out of 10 times, you only hit the ball 3 times. So you means you fail 7 times out of 10. If you are a baseball player and you're the most talented player in the world, if you have no grit, no ability to fail, forget it. You might as well quit right now, do something else. It's just not for everybody. So, that aside, we were at the hospital and we both kind of thought, I don't know what everybody else was thinking, but we both shared this with each other, that we thought the fat lady was singing and it was kind of over for me. And he says to me one day, we're having this discussion, and he says, Mom, I don't know why I'm able to understand when it comes to you dying or something as big as that. To me, it's so big, I could not think about it. But so during this time I'm in the hospital, he's going to baseball games and hitting and not hitting. And he's like, but when it comes to baseball, I'm not able to get my mind out of it. And I said, oh, we'll have to have a discussion about that, because that's pretty fun, because I feel the same way about pooping. Because, you know, when you're taking all those narcotics, it messes up your system. So I said, you know, I'm able, see, if I think too much about dying and about what might happen to my body and physical pain, I know going down that road leads to one path only, and that will be in a corner under my bed in the dust, curled up in a ball, being an emotional cripple. I know that's where that leads. But for some reason, when it comes to pooping, I think that thinking about it and getting freaked out about it is going to do something, just like him. When he's at the baseball plate, he thinks, if he thinks a lot and strategizes a lot, well, obviously if you're playing in the game and you're busy thinking a lot about the future, just like the kid with the red block is not, and strategizing about, well, if I do well, this college will get me and this one won't, and this will happen, and that means all these things in the future. Just like me and my pooping, it means, I don't know what it means, but it means I'll be really uncomfortable for the rest of my life. For some reason, I think there's still a little thought that I could strategize my way out of it. But he and I are so clear that when it comes to something as big as that, there's only one way to deal with it, and that's just to not step into the future of it. Because that future, like I said, will make me an emotional cripple that's in the dust underneath my bed. And I know that's the only place that path leads. But I am simply a human being that doesn't see all the blind spots all the time, and him too. But I will tell you, for as much as he's able to see that in a baseball game, he'll do that much better. And I said, well, it was so fun too, because I'm with my two boys and they can ask me all the questions they want right now while I'm alive, instead of saying, oh, I wish I would have asked my mother this when they died, you know. But with the principles, it's like you can look at the stuff like that. And it's really obvious that Thomas and I discovered a while back that the future me will know what to do. Well, maybe it won't, but what's it my problem now for anyway? Now has nothing to do with what the future Wendi does. And when Wendi's dealing with a future, maybe I won't even see the body the same way, you know? I was thinking the other day, I might just see the body as a temporary house and really see the impermanence and be totally fine. Just like there's certain things in my body. Like a few years ago, I'm just going to be crass and let it all hang out. But a few years ago, I had a mastectomy, but I'd say like 10 years ago, I had a mastectomy. And I had a beautiful figure. I had nothing better figure than I would have, and very proud of it and loved dressing and everything. And then a couple years later, I'd say about maybe 2.5 or 3 years ago, I got an infection that couldn't be fixed, because where the implant is, it's a piece of plastic, the implant, and your body can't heal that. So I lost a boob. Well, if you had told me 10 years ago I'd be walking around boobless with just one boob, which I happen to make a lot of jokes about in my family, I would think, oh my God, I would never want to have to deal with that physical part of just not being a woman anymore. I'd have so many stories. But like, you live and you adjust when the time comes and you deal with it. And it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just part of this physical body of mine that if I get better, I'll probably redo my boobs because I think it's nice. But like, it's so not on my mind. And maybe on the time that I'm dying, it will so not be on my mind. I have no idea where I'll be. So, in essence, you're asking me this question about death. It just sounds bigger. Like a few times people have come to my talks and they say, "What about the D word?" Ah, the D word. We were always going to die anyway. Nobody ever, I mean, I'm not making light of it because I do find that there is a difference when you're having to deal with it every day. It's sitting there. I always think of a little gargoyle on my shoulder reminding me, hey, guess what? But I actually don't even think that way that much anymore. I actually am just part of the real world. And every now and then I'll go and feel sorry for myself and say, well, they don't have to deal with thinking about dying. And I'm like, whatever, shut up. I just don't take myself too seriously anymore.
Yeah, that's right. That's but I thought that would be helpful for people to hear the way that you see that and the way you know it works. Because I don't think we talked that much about when we did the program, I don't think we talked about that much about death and dying, did we? I can't remember now.
No, but I do have one more thing I just remembered. In February, I went and spoke, you know this, at an alternative conference. The alternative was like alternative doctors and medicines for people with cancer. I'd say it was in Florida. There was about 300 people there. I always wondered how I wiggled my way into a 40-minute spot with all these doctors and famous people, but I did. And after I have, everybody has their, well, I have a lot of best girlfriends, you being one of them. I remember saying to one of my best girlfriends, because she had been to some of these 10 something years ago when I was frantically trying to find a way to live. And she didn't come with me to this, but I remember this kind of feeling because, I was of service to those people to help them not fear death. And I think one of the courses I put out at the time was called Scanxiety, remember? It was named Scanxiety, and it was about not having anxiety over scans, which comes easy to me now. Um, so after that conference, I remember saying to Andrea, what is wrong with me? I don't think I want to live as much as these people. They were all frantically taking notes because, there's places in Germany that have, outside of the regular traditional medical field, most people know this, but there's actually legitimate places in like Istanbul and Germany and Mexico that actually do legitimate medical practices that are a little bit outside of the box. So that's what people come to these things for. They're looking for the one thing that's going to work for their particular cancer. So I don't know if there was 30 different doctors there. Some of them diametrically opposed to other things. So you have to really try to listen. What I taught them about is how to listen like a piece of music and you'll hear what's right for you. Well, but I just didn't understand why these people were so frantically grabbing at information. But I did remember going to one of these 10 years ago and being so frantic and so afraid and so obsessed with finding the right guarantee thing. And then, so what first, and this is so cool how this happens. At first, something seems like you're messing up and you're not really understanding how the mind works and you're not understanding the principles. And then when you like get a little perspective into it, you actually see that you're doing better than you ever were. So this is what happened to me. It's like I went from thinking, what's wrong with me? Do I not have a will to live? Because I was looking at these people. Everybody had notebooks and they were buying books and everyone was talking and there was long lines for each doctor to talk afterwards. And then in discussing this with my friend, I realized, oh, it's not that I don't have a will to live. It's just that I'm not frantically living in the idea that maybe there's something that's going to help me. And it just seems like such a miserable place to be. Like none of those people looked happy, I'll tell you. Besides the cancer, they weren't happily looking for the thing that's going to help them. And why do you even want to live to begin with? You want to live so that you can enjoy life. I mean, I would think. And doing that process of being so frantically trying to find the right thing for you, that's not a fun, happy place. It's a scary place. What if I get the wrong thing? I'm not going to come back for another year to find new doctors to have new things and all that. So I realized it was actually not me doing so badly. It was actually me getting to a place where I was just going to be kind of sane and happy no matter what. I was not dependent on the next idea of how to cure my cancer in order to live a happy moment, in order to enjoy my time there. And that was really interesting and fun to discover that.
But that doesn't mean that you're sitting back and not doing anything. I mean, yeah, what I mean is that if something comes along and says, well, this actually could help you, you're not like, oh no, I don't need to do anything.
No, and as you mentioned that there are people like that, and I have nothing against being like that. But no, actually, what I was trying to say when I made my speech is you will actually hear what's better for you to do because your IQ actually raises. Like George used to say this, but I really understand it. When you're so focused and you're so upset, you can't really think straight of what's going to really work for you. So you miss things. It's like people used to say to Sid Banks, as I'm sure you guys have heard, why didn't you tell me this 20 years ago? He's like, I've been saying the same thing for 20 years. Well, because it's so simple, people miss it because they're so frantically trying to get it that they don't hear it. So that's why he's always saying he was, well, I don't know why he did anything because I'm not him, but that's why to me it makes sense to listen like a piece of music because you'll hear what I notice happens to me too is I'll hear or I'll read about a book, somebody will tell me about a book and I'll be like, yeah, whatever. Then I'll hear it a second time from somebody else, and then I'll hear it a third time and I'll be like, okay, time to get that book. And I just feel like there's more of a intuition that goes with who to follow for what is good for you to do. Because I'm not one of those people yet or right now that's just going to say, okay, let me just die. Because I have a few things up my sleeve, like in terms of different healing modalities and things that I'm working with.
Yeah,
Um,
but the
going,
difference is that those have come to you, or you've been aware of those things from a different place, not from I must get something and I must do this and I must save my. It's like you're much calmer about it. And yeah, I've got some ideas and things have come to me, and I know about a few things that are going on. Not, oh my goodness, I must do something. This is a lot different. Yeah.
right, and the way I can explain that is exactly the way you're saying it from a simple perspective. There's not unhappiness attached to it. And people think unhappiness, being unhappy about something makes it mean something. There's not unhappiness attached to it. When there's not unhappiness attached to it, you think better. So it's not with like a lot of thinking about the future and what if it doesn't work. There's just more like, okay, for today, this looks like the right thing for me to do for my body. Those people are just those people, and they're very bright, most of the people that goes to things like that, because they've done a lot of their own research that's outside of the regular medical things, because a lot of those medical things didn't work for those people, so they've already been through a lot of years and they're big researchers. I'm not that great at researching, um, But like, for instance, the other day it came to me, there's 3 women that I know that are very good researchers. And I said, I really want to get in this particular study. And I got on the phone and I called those 3 women. I said, this is where I'm at with my cancer. I've known you for years. I hadn't talked to them for 10 years, some of them. Would you be willing to help me? I'm not good at researching. They aren't. Came to me to do that.
Yeah.
Without the usual frantic unhappiness. That's all that's left out, is there's not, if I get well, then I could be happy. If I get well, then I'll let myself be happy. If I get well, then I'll enjoy. It's the other way around. If you enjoy, then you have more opportunity to get well. No guarantees, though, because we all live and die.
Yeah, totally. But it's very like you were saying about Thomas and the baseball, that while he's thinking about it, he's not, he's closed down and not able to play the game properly. And it's the same thing. In the moment, you might as well be happy now. Whereas I know, I certainly when I was younger, I believed that I had to be unhappy. I had to be worrying about things for them to get better, which is crazy when you think about it. It doesn't make any sense at all. And certainly understanding the principles makes that really clear. Yeah.
It really does, huh? It's so simple too. Just worry, just being unhappy. Like, I read years ago a book called Happiness, something about happiness being a choice. It's not that it's a choice or not a choice. It's just the fact that you think you have to be unhappy in order to get someplace. And that's not true. And everybody can look back on their life and see a moment that they got to something and they weren't unhappy. Like, for instance, when you're playing a sport and you're just totally in the zone, just totally there in that zone, enjoying the sport. It's not something we can do, but when we stop scrubbing those spots off, it just sort of happens naturally.
Yeah. I love that. I haven't heard it put like that before about the spots, and I love that one. I think that is just so simple and so much what it is. Yeah.
I hadn't heard it before either, so just came
which only goes to show where things come from, right?
Nowhere, yeah.
Just when you need them.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's lovely. Thank you very much. And it's been really, really good to see you and to talk to you again. And I'll be talking to you again soon. So thank you so much. And I'm sure that's been really good for other people who haven't heard about it before. And even if they only just remember, don't scrub the spots off, just be you. Yeah. Thanks. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.